Welcome to another episode of The Brand Culture, a podcast and video show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, and experience from hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe so you won't miss a new episode. I'm your host, Frits Bussemaker, and today I'm delighted to have a conversation with Liz Wilke. Liz, welcome to the program.
Thank you. I'm happy to join.
Yeah, and allow me to introduce you to the audience. You have a quite extensive background, but you're currently the chief economist at Chase, and you're doing that full time. You're the principal economist at Gusto, also doing that full time. A PhD and a master's in philosophy at Pardee Rand Graduate School, and you're based out of DC, Washington, DC. In the past, worked for companies like LinkedIn, Millennium Challenge, Rand Corporation. You taught at American University. That sums about it. That's it.
That is a very good and succinct summary of
Great.
my professional experience to date.
Great. Okay. Well, we're going to talk your professional life and your personal view on things. Well, the first thing which struck me is, as mentioned, you full-time work for Chase and you full-time work for Gusto. Why have two full-time jobs?
Actually, that is a bit of a correction. I was full-time at Gusto. I'm now only full-time at Chase. Those two were not overlapping. I left Gusto for the opportunity at Chase. And I'll also clarify that I am one chief economist at Chase. There are
Yeah.
many who
Yeah.
sit across parts of the bank. So I mostly look after the small business intelligence that Chase produces in order to provide intelligence about small businesses and how they're doing in the US. But I was doing that at Gusto. They asked me to come over from LinkedIn and to build what is essentially the economic graph team at Gusto using the data that's on the platform to talk about how small businesses are doing. And then I got the opportunity at Chase to just really expand that work. People ask me why I came to Chase, and I say I came for 5 million businesses to
Yeah.
talk about them and who they are and, the value that they're creating in the world.
What's what's your empathy towards small businesses? Because I understand that is one of your focus areas.
Yeah, I think I'm trained as an economist. I think that mostly economists think about workers
Mhm.
primarily, right? There's tons and tons of labor economists who are thinking about wages and compensation and hours and skill development and labor market matching, and that's all very interesting. It's how I came to small businesses. What I think we don't think about are the small businesses, especially in the United States. Small businesses employ nearly half of the entire workforce.
Yeah.
So we can't even talk about workforce unless we are thinking about small business. And I got into it when I went to Gusto, which is a payroll provider for small businesses in the United States. And I think what really drove my connection to them is that running and building a small business, and I mean small,
Yeah.
it could be upwards of 20 or 50
Yeah.
million, but like building your own business is an incredibly personal transformation that happens. And just over and over and over again, small business owners who have built successful businesses have the most incredible stories of grit and determination and perseverance and just this vision to bring something into the world that's sort of wholly created by themselves. And it's just absolutely captivating to watch them. And I came to really respect and admire them in a way that, like, I think if I meet a small business owner who's built a successful business, they've done something that I currently can't even dream about doing because it seems so hard and so difficult. But they have also learned lessons that are just valuable as like personal life lessons. And there's something about them that I want to know. And I think that really sparked just my love of small business and entrepreneurship. And also, I think I gained a real appreciation for just how human and personal the work is of building a small business. And I've been in it ever since.
The way you describe it suggests that you're also that you're talking to these small businesses examples directly. You're talking to the people who create those small businesses. Is that true?
Yeah, I mean, I work with big data.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's my day job, but I don't think, and I've learned time and again that you can't the numbers that come out of data, the ones and zeros that sort of make up a statistic, we only care about data because there's something about ourselves that we can see
Mhm.
in it.
Yeah.
And I think I'm very much of the bent that you can't understand someone or something or some phenomenon unless you can combine the numbers with the heart and the people behind the numbers. And really, it helps you to contextualize it, but it also helps you to tell better stories and to connect the numbers with the people that those numbers represent. So it's a big part of how I approach our work and how I did it at Gusto too, which is that it's not enough to know the number. You have to understand the stories of people. And then there's like this reinforcing mechanism where I meet someone, they tell me a story, and then I think, oh, I wonder if we can see that in the data, or I wonder if we can describe that
Yeah.
phenomenon, right, for everybody else who this is happening to that I just didn't talk to.
And now, what you're sharing with me makes me curious in the sense, do you see the data confirming the stories, or do you also see examples where the data or the stories are opposite of the data of each other?
Yeah, sometimes it happens both ways. I'll give an example that's
Yeah.
actually not in the data that we use at Gusto or Chase, but there's a sort of story floating around a lot of circles in Washington and elsewhere, mostly by white collar professionals that have been in their jobs for a long time. That nobody wants to stay at a company for 20 or 30 years anymore, and that careers are getting sort of higher turnover, that young people aren't staying as long, and that this is sort of due to technological transformation and just sort of younger people being more impatient. I will also caveat that I am fortunate or not to have been around long enough to have seen multiple cycles of like the young people don't want to or like aren't good
Yeah.
enough to or like that story, and I definitely don't think it's true. But anyway, so I looked into the census data, and actually the number of times that a young person changes a job has basically been kind of stable for like the last 50 years. It's bounced around here and there, but the sort of myth
Yeah.
and from known experience, right, from people who are actually living it, saying, I can't keep young people, they don't want to stay. There's sort of myth that young people are more fickle in their jobs than they used to be. I think what the data shows is they actually change jobs about as much, but I think what the insight is there is that they want different things and they value different things, right? But the people who are telling the story are telling it from their own perspective. And the data can, I think, really break that open and help to show that there are lots and lots of perspectives getting mixed together here that overall make a story.
Okay, so maybe you can help me then with another, I don't know if it's a myth or not, but the story that I would say the younger generation is much more interested to work, I would say, on a purpose rather than work for profit.
I've heard this one too.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I I don't know what the answer is because also I think the reasons the why we work are very
Mhm.
complex, right? We
Yeah.
don't just work for one thing or another. We are always trading off values. And I think that, what does it mean to work for purpose or to work for profit? I don't, so in the extreme case, right, you could say I'm doing something that I'm ethically opposed to, but that pays me so much money that I can't say no to it. And I'm satisfied to do that because I think it's an okay trade-off versus I'm making virtually not enough to keep body and soul together, but it's so personally meaningful to me. I'm just compelled to do it. Like those are sort of the very extreme examples. And I don't, my personal view here, backed up by exactly no data, is that I don't know that a person who's 20 years old today would think about these trade-offs very differently from a person who was 20 years old in 1970 or 20 years old in 1950. And so, where in the distribution young people today are falling versus where they might have fallen, 30 or 40 or 50 years ago, I don't know that we have the data. I think it's very difficult to ask people why they work because the answer to that question is so complex. You can't get at it in a survey. And so I also tend to be a little bit skeptical of those kinds of surveys and those kinds of results because you have to think about what's the process by which you ask a person this question. They can give you a really honest answer that comes through in a multiple choice. And then it becomes hard to sort of trust the data behind that, to be honest.
Yeah, and then you have lies, damn lies, and statistics, and you can measure
Yeah,
what you want depending on the questions you're going to ask.
that's right.
So if there are some myths out there which the data proves they're not there, or let's go follow our gut feeling. Because in preparation of this talk, I did find that you do see some big changes in work at the moment,
Mhm.
in work environment. And could you take us along on what are the big changes you do see happening at this stage?
Yeah, I mean, and also I'll go back to just sort of share a little bit about my personal philosophy
Yeah.
about work, which is, and I got this from a mentor of mine once upon a time. She said the whole point is good work done well for the right reasons. And I think that really encapsulates a lot of my own personal approach to work, but I also think that a lot of people who are evaluating, right, like whether or not they're satisfied at work, probably are using something like the framework. Is the work meaningful? Is it interesting? Is it safe? Am I respected? Done well? Am I good at it? Am I around people that make me better, right? And for the right reasons. Do I find purpose or motivation in this that's sort of beyond myself? And I think that's a lot of what people want in their work environment. And then there's sort of a lot of like the brass tacks, right? So at Gusto, we looked a lot at work from home and remote work, especially small businesses were using that as a way to get a lot of talent that they couldn't otherwise get because people not only value the flexibility of remote work, but they also sort of see the benefit of it, and the technology changes from the pandemic made it really possible. I do think that we have been in an age previously where professional workers especially held a lot of um, bargaining power,
Mhm.
for lack of a better
Yeah.
word, to sort of
Yeah.
influence how their employers were creating environments and, responding to corporate responsibility issues and whatnot. Um, I'm not really sure if I got around to answering your question.
Well, you alluded to the fact that okay, the big change, one of the big changes is the fact we now can work remotely. It's not 9 to 5 in the office anymore. So it's one change. And the other change, definitely we have to discuss AI in this stage as well.
Mhm.
Is that going to be a big change, or is that also too much a myth at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's already a big change. And one of the things that I think does feel um, different about this time is that many people have side projects now, whether monetized or not, whether they
Hmm?
ultimately become small businesses, or not. I think I will say I personally have asked generative AI to code already two apps for me for entirely personal use. Um, and I do think that technology has changed sort of what it means to be on and off work as well. I think it's expanded what people can do with their free time, which includes making money. And I think that lots of people have decided they want to work projects or they want to work a job and then have side projects for their own personal or financial benefit. And I think that is really changing how people think about work and like the total sum of work that they do. Somebody asked me once, in sort of a blue sky way, what if you just woke up every day and took a project, right, instead of going to work? And I, I don't know that that's exactly how we'll go. But it is a future that you can think about happening, right, in a world where, we have technologies that allow us to contract with anybody anywhere, right? And we can sort of define requirements and sort of farm it out or automate a lot of it. I think distributed autonomous organizations, the ability of like a kind of headless automated organization to organize work is really interesting. So once you add AI into that and automate a bunch of tasks, I mean, it's very difficult to forecast exactly not just what the impact AI is going to have, but I mean, just sort of everything. It's not just AI. I think the blockchain is sort of we're still figuring out what its commercial and social uses are. I know it's out of vogue to talk about that, but it is a very potentially powerful technology that I think just hasn't reached its maturity. But then also if you were to ask me, Liz, what's going to be, one of the most significant drivers of work, I would have told you 2 years ago is like Ozempic. If you can extend the working
Wow,
life of
did not expect that.
humans, I
Yeah.
mean, if you can keep humans alive and healthy and not sick, so that they can work longer and also so that they need less care, assuming that Ozempic can do all those things. I'm not a doctor. I don't know. That transforms the workforce, right? And who can work and what work needs to be done. And so I'm just saying, like, there are so many factors in addition to the potential of AI that I think are really are just going to transform what the world of work looks like and what work needs to be done and by whom. It's very, very difficult to forecast.
Okay. Segue here. Two questions briefly. Ozempic. To what extent is that an American problem and versus a global problem?
I think, I mean, it certainly is an American problem, but, and again, I'm not a doctor, but the last time I looked at it, I thought that rates of obesity were in fact increasing globally, that this is sort of,
Okay.
it maybe started as an American problem, but my understanding is that rates of global obesity are increasing around the world. And so it may not be just an American problem that far in the future.
Okay. Well, I think the rest of the world always follows 10, 20 years behind, and then we catch up with what's happening in that trend. So who knows? Maybe you're right. The other thing is, in the changes you see, who should be more concerned, the worker on the workforce or management?
Hmm. I mean, that's a difficult one. And I think the problem, the difficulty is in the word concern, right? And I think it's easy. Here's my reaction. I'm resisting the urge to reduce both workers and managers to like a single dimension that they care about, right? Or to a single
Yeah,
thing.
fair point.
So I mean, there are many, many types of workers out there, and I'm trying not to take too US centric view, right? Lots of people, work on factory floors, or they work in fields, or they are producing something artisanally, or they are working at their computers in the Philippines, doing outsourced work. I mean, workers as a category certainly are not monolithic, and employers as a category certainly are not monolithic. I think you're talking about the impacts of AI, right, on that relationship. And I truly honestly think it is too early to tell. And even within a certain context, there's an article out today that you know, professional services companies are thinking about how to automate some entry level tasks, right? And that's changing the demand for college graduates, right, in entry level jobs. That's that's a different set of concerns for somebody who's 20 today than it is for me, right, who already has a lot of experience and is actually made more valuable, right, by certain AI tasks. So even in the sort of same environment, whether or not it's a concern for me or a concern for somebody else really depends on their own personal situation.
Okay, got it. Hey, I want to actually come back to the role of being a chief economist or one of the chief
Mhm.
economists. Who do you report to? Who is interested in what you do?
So we think about our sort of customers and clients, right? Who is going to have value out of what we do? And I think one, just business leaders, right? I mean, the small business segment is a huge part of any economy, right? It's an important
Yeah.
employment generator. It gives people jobs. It allows them to pursue their own interests. And there's small businesses everywhere. So just as like an economic issue, the small business segment is an important economic segment, right? Is it trending up? Is it trending down? Should we be worried that there are pockets of weakness? And that's, true from like readers of the Times to true like executives and business leaders who are trying to think about what does the economic environment look like and how should I respond to it? But I also think that there are lots of businesses out there, B2B businesses that serve, right, small businesses
Yeah.
by doing marketing, by providing them payroll, by doing their back office, accounting or invoicing or payments or advertising or what have you, right? There's this sort of whole wrapper of services that big businesses and small businesses, right, want to give to small businesses, and they care very much about how small businesses are trending and whether or not they're healthy and what drivers of their revenue are. And then the small business itself also cares about this, right? And so we have, you know, there is a future out there where, a small business can understand what its profit margin is relative to the distribution of profit margins in its industry, which a large business can pay a client, or excuse me, can pay a consultant for, but a small business is never going to pay a consultant for. The power of a lot of this data is that there is a future where we can deliver really sort of particular insights direct to small business owners so that they can make different or more informed decisions about their own business. And that I think is really exciting about sort of this role and what it does and the power of big data to sort of bring those insights all the way to the personal level.
Got it. Hey, I want to come back to something you said in the beginning. Thank you, Liz, by the way. You mentioned something a mentor shared with you how to view work, making sure it's meaningful. And I was just wondering, are there any role models in your life which have brought you where you are today?
Yes, I think in my professional career, there have just been people who I did not actively seek out, but whom when I met them, I said sort of to myself, that person knows something that I want to know. And it was always different, but sort of at the time, sometimes people just hit you as being, you know, very polished or technically excellent or with the right mindset, right, about how to look at the world that you want to understand better and learn from. And those people have become mentors to me. Some of those people, not all of those people, have become mentors to me because you recognize something in them that you want to understand for yourself or that you want to learn for yourself.
And
And
is it
those
then
people have
okay?
turned into, right, my mentors.
Yeah. And is it then as simple, and I'm just asking this on behalf of the audience who are interested in starting their own career, is it as simple as recognizing that person has something to offer and just ask, hey, can you help me? Can I talk to you? What do you ask these people to get them in that role?
A couple of ways. So, how several of them have been managers, right? And if you have a good manager who cares about your development, don't underestimate the power of that
Yeah.
because you are working day to day together, and there is no work opportunity that can't be turned into a development opportunity. But the mentor-mentee relationship is a two-way street, right? So, as much work as a mentor is putting into, a mentee probably needs to putting in twice the work in order to get the value out of that relationship. There are formal programs that I have matched with also where, there were just mentors there that really spoke to me. And I would not discount the strategy of just reaching out to somebody that you admire, telling them why you admire them and asking if they can give you 15 or 30 minutes of their time to help you to understand something. And I will give an example. I have been a mentor to several people, and it was either sort of like just general career advice, but I've had people reach out to me to say, "Hey, I'm thinking about graduate school and I want to understand my career opportunities if I take this path. You have taken this path. Will you talk to me about your experience?" And even just those interactions have turned into mentor-mentee relationships.
Okay. So um, dare to ask, and hopefully you'll get a positive reply.
Yeah, I mean, I think that if you are motivated to learn in this world, there are people who are who want to help you, right? I think that we all think that everybody's too busy to pay attention to us. I think that it is natural for like ambitious people to also discount a lot of their capabilities and the value and the fact that other people might want to know about them and want to help them. Anybody who's successful enough has had to have people help them and are very likely to want to give that back in one way or another. And I think we
Okay.
discount how important we can be to
Yeah.
our mentors. We only think that they can be important to us.
Okay. Hey, so basically, so the premise is that any successful individual out there did not do it by himself or herself. So there has to be help. So therefore, it's a valid reason to reach out.
That's right.
Good
We
advice.
cannot be
Yeah.
great without
Yeah.
other people.
Great.
And when we have achieved a certain level of greatness, however defined, we always want to help other people, right, achieve
Yeah.
what we have done.
Great. Now, if you look back at your career so far, are there any milestones, any significant moments where you say, hey, I've learned something here. This is a watershed moment for me? Or has it been more fluid from one to the other?
My personal experience has been that I learn things in reverse. Um, I don't think that at the time that I was learning so always when I'm at my highest point of learning, it's the worst for me in the moment. So if you are going through a rough situation, or this was true for me, every time I've been through a very rough work situation where I was basically miserable, or it felt so hard, or I felt like my least capable, looking back, those were every single time the times where I learned the most, up leveled, right? Achieved something new, like really became a different level professional. But I did not understand in the moment that that's what I was doing. And I did not understand in the moment exactly how I was changing and what I was learning. It's only after that time passes that I have been able to look back and say, oh, I
Yeah.
have a different outlook now. And it came from that time, right? That was difficult or tough, or, I felt like I wasn't doing my best or I wasn't doing anything. And so my reflection has always been in reverse. So it has felt like a natural evolution going forward. But then when I look back and try to learn lessons or reflect on how I've changed, they have always been sort of tense or difficult times where I felt bad in the moment. And then only understanding it afterwards in the context of how it worked out was I really able to appreciate how much I had learned.
Great. That's a okay. Great insight. So that means just, I would say, expect, almost embrace a bumpy road because that's how you can grow.
Yeah, there's no learning in your
No,
comfort zone.
no.
It was like a very trite thing to say, but it's true. It's been true every single time in my life.
Yeah. Are there any, as a chief economist, are there any role models out there, where say, hey, that is something I inspire?
Hmm. I well, I mean, I think my hesitation obviously will tell you that there's not like a single
Yeah.
person,
No.
that I'm have a there's no one single person. I think that there are people who, again, who just hit you as understanding something about the world that you want to understand. Actually, to be honest, I think Carissa is one of those people, not to
Mhm.
um
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if she'll listen to this, but I do think Carissa is one of those people. She's, built a very successful business. She's endlessly positive and optimistic about what is possible. And I think that it's less about people who are in economics. It's more about people who see what is possible in the world and who understand that the process of building a world that we want is a process that takes everybody and is a process that cannot happen overnight. And I think that people who have the right like the right combination of analysis and heart are people that I really look up to and aspire to be like
Great.
more myself.
Okay. I think you're making the audience curious. I'll make certain that Carissa's interview I did one with her will also be referred in this email so people know who she is. And fully agree, she is a role model for a lot of people out there.
Mm.
Um, Liz, time is moving so fast, unfortunately. A couple of questions. In your own role as a mentor, is there any generic advice you can give to people starting off with their own career?
Yeah, two things. One with maybe two subparts. One is a mentor gave me this advice. There's no substitute for excellence. It doesn't matter how much you want to achieve, but good work done consistently, you cannot achieve what you want to do without good, excellent work done consistently if you want whatever it is you want to achieve. And that's just fundamentally number one. Focus on that. And then I think extracting from what I previously said, be patient and figure out how you are going to learn from your current situation. I think for me, looking back, I could have achieved even more. I could have been a better professional and also a better person while doing it if I had just sort of thought instead about where I'm going, thinking instead about where I am and how do I extract the most value out of this situation to learn to be a better professional, to do better work, to serve more people, to think more broadly, to change my own self. I think I missed a lot of opportunities before I learned to take that view. And so I think young people have an opportunity. They have so much of their careers ahead of them to learn way, way, way more than I have learned in my own career, and to just sort of really accelerate, right, their long-term trajectory. Because if you couple that with consistent excellence, like those two things together, I think are really like that's the recipe.
Got it. Hey, then last question is for you. How does your future look like? Do you have any ambition, desire? Okay, that's what I'm going to do in 5 years' time. That's how I'm going to retire.
No, I mean, I think about retirement, but I don't think about, hanging out on a golf course or a tennis court. I think about what's the next thing I want to do. So I'm building something and people paying me money for it now. But when I think about what will I do when nobody's paying me, it's usually like a goal, right? It's like I'll hike the Appalachian Trail, or I will learn how to sail. My spouse and I will get a sailboat and we'll do a world tour. And so I keep thinking about like what's a big chunky project, right, to take on. Professionally, I would say I have been lazy about planning my professional path. I basically have a pattern where I am in a job for 3 to 5 years. I learn as much as I can, and then I'm like, okay, well, I know how to do this job. Let's do something else that seems very fun and interesting. Which honestly I wouldn't recommend as a strategy, but it's worked out for me, so I couldn't tell anybody that they shouldn't do it that way. I think careers, this is the way I feel about a career. Ultimately, we spend a lot of our lives doing work.
Yeah.
Whatever work you do, make sure that when you look back on how you've done it or what you've done, that you're okay with the choices that you made, right? That you spent your time doing something that was interesting or meaningful or, right, purposeful to you. And then honestly, it kind of doesn't matter like what you do, because it will be work done well for the right reasons, right? Under the right circumstances. And wherever you land after that, it's like, it's fine. This is your whole life. And work should only enable a life that you like want to live in its whole self.
Liz, I want to thank you so much for sharing your insights for the brand called You. Great insights on work, and I hope in your future that sailing boat will become a reality. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Fritz.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the brand called You.